I just finished developing an open world horror game where you navigate an island in an old train, upgrade it over time, and then use it to fight an evil spider train named Charles. And now that it's done, I am releasing it on Steam in how many days? So with Choo Choo Charles releasing so soon, it's probably about time that I answered some of these more important questions that you guys have had about stuff like when the game is releasing on consoles, how long the game is, and how much it's going to cost. So let's hop into the first of what will be many highly intellectual questions, I am sure. Let's get started. Does Charles say it's training time and train all over the place? Yeah, that's not what I meant. Did the game ever reach a scope that you weren't expecting? As in, did the game become much larger than you initially thought? Yes, originally I was expecting Choo Choo Charles to just be a small, dumb meme game, but now it's kind of turned into just a big, dumb meme game. Originally I was planning on only spending about 6 months developing it, and it turned into a little over a year, so it has definitely grown more than I was expecting it to, but ultimately I think it's worth it since the game has also gotten more attention than I was expecting it to, so I wanted to make sure that it was, you know, actually decent. What is Charles' favorite food? Humans. Can we expect a possible sequel in the future, like Choo Choo Charles, if the game does well? I'm not sure about sequels at the moment since I've been kind of occupied making the first game, and I will say I think it would be kind of sad if this is the first and last that we ever see of Choo Choo Charles, but that's all I'm gonna say for now. Since things have changed drastically and improved, I must ask, have you changed your mind on allowing us to romance Charles? I know that this was a question that you asked me, but I think I've got more questions to ask you. Will there be large-scale free updates in the future, either adding to the story or slightly different ways to play? Or will those be DLC, if at all? I think in the future, when I do the console release, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on in this video, but I think when I do the console launch, I'm also going to do a content update, free content update for the game. That'll be available probably with some extra missions, side missions, and probably some extra new locations. Nothing too insane, but I would like to add some additional free content to the game at some point after launch. If Charles had a favorite food besides human meat, what would it be? The human. Just still. I'm not a PC guy. Do you think you might make it available on consoles sometime after the first release? Yes, I'm planning on doing a console launch next year. I still don't know a lot about the console porting process, so that's stuff that I'll need to learn as I go. But yeah, I'm planning on trying to make that happen. How big is Choo Choo Charles in height and length? He is train-sized. Did you have fun making the game, and are you proud of the game? Overall, yes. Choo Choo Charles has been a very fun game to develop. It's been kind of the first game in a very long time where I didn't take it as seriously. Like there's a lot of lighthearted and just goofy stuff in the game. I mean, it's about a spider train, come on. So stuff like that has made it very fun to develop, and I would say yes, I am very proud of how the game turned out. I think it's actually a pretty cool game. I think it stands up and it stands out pretty well, and I think you guys are actually genuinely going to enjoy it, at least most of you, like 90% of you. Hopefully. What is Charles' favorite kind of sandwich? Just human. But I get human with bread. Do you have any worries about the game? If so, what are they? I've had many worries about the game throughout development, but kind of slowly over time, each one of those worries has sort of just slowly dissolved. At first, I was worried about performance, like how was I going to make an open world game that actually ran well, and I managed to figure it out kind of as I went. I was really worried about the AI. I was worried about the AI being buggy or just way too difficult to make, and while it was very difficult to make, I'll probably talk about that later on too, I managed to kind of figure it out. There were also things with like the game's balancing and the story, and there were a lot of different things that I was worried about, and bugs, but ultimately at this point, everything I think is pretty good, and I'm pretty confident in the game and what I've got at this point. Will Charles wear his Sunday best? He's quite dapper. I will agree, he's quite dapper, but Charles doesn't need a suit to become dapper. How long will it take for you to complete a full playthrough? It varies quite a bit since the game is open world and you can pretty much do any mission in any order. So depending on how you play, it can go faster or slower, but on average, The majority of people, about 80% of people, will complete the game between 3 and 4 hours, with the last 20% of people completing a little bit faster or slower. Some people as fast as 2 hours, and I've heard some people finishing in as slow as like 6. Since the map is so big, what's the actual likelihood that you run into Charles? Does he appear during certain events of the game? Can you run into him randomly, or is he going to appear at certain times and places? So there are only 2 scripted events with Charles, those being the tutorial, where you kind of just learn how to fight Charles, and the second one being the boss fight. Other than that, every encounter is generally random, but controlled. It's a little bit complicated to explain exactly how it works, but there's a system in place to make sure that Charles is kind of in your general vicinity frequently enough to be an actual threat, but not quite enough to be just annoying. So it's not 100% random, but yes, you will definitely be running into Charles throughout the game. When I finish the game, will there be an easy way to restart it? Okay, first off, that profile picture, solid. I love it. And yes, you can play the game multiple times. There's a restart button on the menu. What is the plot of the game like? Open world or linear playthrough? So the way that I describe the plot and the story of the game is that it starts in one place and it ends in one place, and how you get there changes. Basically, there's a tutorial that everybody will go through, and the boss fight always happens in the same place in the same way. But depending on the order that you do the main missions in and the side missions that you do, you might discover different parts of the story in different orders. Will Choo Choo Boy be steaming mad? I see what you did there. That's good. That's very good. Can we expect a difficulty selection or a new game plus with extra things after we finish the game? There is not a difficulty selection, and there's no new game plus. So once you finish the game, you can hop back into the game and you can continue to explore the map, fight Charles more, you can redo the boss fight multiple times, as well as do missions that you may have missed previously, but there's no special content that unlocks after finishing the game. Will there be a cheese? Will the game have multiple languages? Will the game have multiple languages? Q&A? No? Come on. Where were we? Yes. The game is available in, I think, 24 languages, and the full list can be found on the Steam page. What is your favorite thing about Charles? I mean, since you asked, his face, his eyes, his big legs, all 8 of them, is what a spider simp would say. Weirdos, all you spider pervs. What do you spend the most work on but people probably won't notice when playing the game? Oh, the absolute just months of time spent troubleshooting the cultist AI. That stuff, those dudes, those cultist dudes, have had a complete mind of their own for the past year of development. Yeah, I spent more time troubleshooting the cultist AI than anything. Like, you might have seen the devlog where I spent like a week and a half, you know, making a cool little cultist AI. But that was just the beginning. I spent months troubleshooting that AI, fixing and struggling. You don't understand. You don't. Not a question, but a reminder to hit that like button and subscribe with the notification bell on. I like that comment. Any idea of how much you want to charge for the game? Yeah, so I've waited a very long time to talk about this one, because I've been debating back and forth constantly on what I'm going to charge for it. And ultimately what I've decided is that Choo Choo Charles is going to cost $19.99 in the US, in US dollars, but the price is localized for different regions, so I don't know exactly what it's going to cost everywhere. Like if you're in Brazil or Mexico or Spain or something, it's going to cost, like the conversion to your local currency might not be like 1-to-1, but in the US, in US dollars, it's $19.99. Remember to wishlist Choo Choo Charles on Steam. It's coming out on December 9th. Play it when it comes out. It's awesome. Put it on your calendar. Subscribe to the channel. That's it. Bye.